Now.
Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? I am, it's 10:30 on a Wednesday. What is occurring there? I am trying to find the chat so I can hear you all talking. Yeah. Hear you all talking, see you talking, see the chat. I don't know, maybe I can hear it. We're on somebody else's video there. That's good. Actually, I think, I think Eric wants me to watch somebody else's video instead.
He won't get the hint.
He won't get the hint. How are you all? Hope you're all doing marvelously well. In a minute, I will look at the chat and I'll see who's online. Who has been joining us here? There's lots of new members, so that's fantastic. Hello. We have CJ. We have Nate. Hey, Nate. How are you? I talked to Nate yesterday. It was rather lovely. Oh, so Nate has an album. I don't know if he's told you all about it. I think it's in the forum. So it's an album that he made. Nate, correct me if I'm wrong. 2001, did you do the album? Anyway, he made this album. It's a really fantastic album. I like it. It's kind of I don't know, it's like alternative rock meets a bit proggy because there's some really cool arrangement stuff. It's kind of an undefinable sound in a good way. Excuse me. It hits lots of different buttons. And he's mixed it, and it was his band. And somebody else had, mixed it back in 2001. So he remixed the album, and he said that he's put the whole album up in the forum. So if you haven't already done that, go and check it out because it's an opportunity to mix one of our Academy members' records. And it's actually a pretty darn good record. We listened to it yesterday and it's very creative. It was originally recorded on tape. Remember tape? Remember that thing? Tape? No, it was recorded on tape. It's really cute, isn't it, watching people discover tape? Vitzi over at White Sea Studios, he's like super excited, with the tape. Sorry, my wife's calling. I'm going to give it to Eric. And it's great. It's great seeing younger people who've never worked on tape. Obviously, I started on tape, so it was like many of us. Now, maybe near the tail end, but there is something rather wonderful. So getting Nate's multi-tracks is going to be a lot of fun because you get a tape recorded, transferred obviously to digital so you can mix it. So go check that out. I think it's one of the wonderful things about the Academy and something that we can do that's really, really unique is that there's so many talented people in here who are sharing their multi-tracks. So please go and check that out. We were talking about it yesterday, and it's probably been up for a little bit, so go and check it out. It's really wonderful. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Mark. Hi, Tim. Hey, David. CJ, Daniel, Tom, Thomas, Trev, Bop Studio, Alexi, Jens, Nate. You're very welcome, Nate. Mary and Sam. Hi, Mary and Sam. Sheila, Beat Poet, Kevin, Jimmy, Paul, I think I'm getting everybody. Sir Egbert, top of the morning to you too. I can do that because I have Irish family. I can get away with it. Jörg, Aaron, how are you? Chris Ibbotson, good evening. Darko, Purty, I want to make sure I don't mess up your name, so let me know. It sounds Finnish. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that one. I probably am. Alexei, Philip, the other Alexei. How are you all? It's all rather wonderful. So we're going to get stuck in. Sup, says Paul sent Eds. Hey, Anita. Hey, Ronald. Hi, Jimmy. Nate says, rock out, everyone. I'd love to hear a remix for some Prince-style drums. That could be fun. So have you had a good week? Have you been having a good week? I know it's only the middle of the week and we've got another one of these on Friday, so I'll probably ask you the same question, but it'll be closer to the end. It's been fun here. I know we're in lockdown. I feel like I have to do the voice like lockdown. it's definitely an interesting time, but also, you know, for many of us, I mean, I'm sure many of you here, this is also sort of a continuation of what you either do, which means that you're, you know, you're always in this mode, you know, making music, producing, engineering, writing, recording, all of that kind of stuff. You know, this is just another day, another moment of this. And then for others, it's probably actually a positive thing in some ways. It's a welcome time where you're able to get in here and spend time recording and mixing and doing all of that kind of stuff. You know, it's really rather wonderful. I've got to get Eric. You know, hold on one second. Okay. Okie dokie. Eric, can you put on the tracks, please? So everyone can see them.
I have put them on.
Yay! I had to get Eric off the phone. All right. Okie dokie. All right, let us listen to the track. So this is where we left it off.
You once lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. Another night on some Cerebral like a cigarette, but you burned me down and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. Girl, light me up like a cigarette, burn me down, there's nothing left.
Marvelous. So there's definitely the kick and the bass. I love the low end too. We haven't really done a lot of shaping of any other instruments other than the kick and the bass, quite frankly. There's no reverbs, there's no effects on any guitars whatsoever. There's a little bit on the organ, and on the organ there is some, high passing, some low cutting, some high passing going on there. And that is it. The vocals the Soothe, I think, has done an amazing job here of getting rid of some of the S's and the T's and some of the harshness. And then we, as a recap, we did a nice high shelf boost to brighten the vocal after Soothe did its work. And then we used another Arvox, which is very unusual for me because the Arvox usually brings in a lot of the low mids. But in this instance, it didn't seem to do anything derogatory whatsoever. It's always nice up front because it adds some fullness. So I always use it right at the beginning, as I did here. But it seemed to work really nicely on the end. So that was quite tasty. I'm going to have a quick solo of the lead vocal.
This is a walk away from all the dirty little games you play. Yeah, I heard your sorries, but I saw no change.
I mean, it's sort of tape sounding, talking of their tape of tape. It's got a bit of that. It's all rather nice. I'm really happy. Now, but we've really done very peripheral stuff, well, on most instruments, but on the instruments except for the drums and the bass. I want to have a quick solo of the drums, just for my own edification, just to get myself back into the song. So it's quite there's reverb on it, but the drum sound is, dare I say, quite natural sounding considering the amount of, verb when soloed. It sounds pretty similar to the way it sounded in the studio when we were tracking. It kept the essence of it. Now let's throw in the bass. The only thing I'm going to do on the bass here is copy this same high passing. So what I did is remember we tried the Arvox for the schnizzle of it. So we used that as a compressor on the bass, which I never do. But I thought, we'll try it. And then we went REQ and we, took down some of the high mids. Sorry. We took down some of the low end here really subtly. And then back to the R bass. And we're getting some 80 in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this REQ here and I'm going to copy it after the R bass. So the thinking for this is I'm shaping going into the R bass. I'm removing the super, super lows, but not like this, not like, not doing that. I'll do that again. You like the sound effects? Okay, so we're not going in there and like just completely, removing everything. We're just gently tailoring it off. So when the bass boost happens, and I know I explain this a lot, but I think it's important. So when the bass boost happens, it doesn't like overdo the 20 to 40 area, which we don't want too much of because we'll be smothering the kick. So what it does is it boosts 80 and then it brings up surrounding areas, but not as dramatically. But now I'm going to just copy that down and again just to kind of tame it a little bit around the kick drums. Let's have a listen. Now, at the moment, Tim, we're not using the MV2. I'm trying to do a little bit of less is more on this one to give it more of what this was supposed to be about. This song we're going to treat more as a could it have been recorded and mixed on tape feel. There's no samples, limited amount of reverb, limited amount of effects. Try to think about how would it sound if it was done on a console, but obviously in the box. I like what that's doing. It's not doing much, but it's doing something. It's just, hey, Rocco, it's just controlling a little bit. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, it's just taming it. It still feels full, but it's taming it a little bit. So these are the sort of subtle things that we're doing. Now, we did do some gentle stuff on the acoustics. Have a listen. So we did all that intro stuff, which was fun. We did that online. So if you haven't already, please just please go back and look at the YouTube videos of the beginning of this mix. They should be in the Academy, yes? They are linked in the Academy of Catalyst. Well, make sure that they are. We should have like its own little folder so everybody can follow along. So Brendan's guitar here. Now, Brendan, just as a reminder, is the lead singer and also the main rhythm guitar player. It's a good, bratty, youthful tone, but it does have a lot of low lows in there. I just soloed it so you could hear it, but if we throw that in with the bass and the drums only, have a listen. So I'm just going to grab, what should we grab? I want to mix it up a little bit because we go for some old favorites and then, like, what about the Focusrite? I haven't used this in years. It says it's going to expire. Okay. Oh. It doesn't have the high and low pass on that. That's quite kind of silly. I'm really confused. There it is. Yeah, the high and low pass isn't on the 4-band. You'd think they would put it on the 2-band and then not have it. Whatever. I'm not even going to think about it. All right, so I'm going to go up to 100 and let's have a listen. It's interesting. I notice it there more than I do on the chords. On the chords, they're it blends nicely into the bass, even with the high pass as high as 157. So have a listen here. You're hearing me taking it on and off. Have a listen. I'll put it in the center for illustration purposes. So have a listen to the relationship between the bass and the drums. Interesting. So we have a couple of options. First thing we could do, quite frankly, is and just this isn't necessarily where I'm going to end up. We have a couple of options. So the first thing we could possibly do is go, well, let's split the difference. So why don't we try that? So why don't we bring it down to like 120 and have a listen? So here's about 120. See if this still works. So on those chords there, it's fine. Again, blends in nicely with the bass, not hearing any major issues. Let's see about the jung 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 jung. Okay, so it's really slight. But when it's on its own, I'm sort of thinking to myself, I'm listening a bit of that low lows. So let's have a listen. So why don't we try the Dave Jordan trick and go below it, Shelley Yakus, Jack Douglas, all the greats, and go below it. So we're going to 100 hertz, which is going to be below the cut, and then boost. And that creates this nice, gentle shelf. So we're going below. So what they would do on the SSL, Shelley does it as well, he started mixing on SSLs in the late 70s, early 80s, is that you high pass up quite dramatically like this, and then you boost below it. And what that does is create a nice, gentle, rather than a bumpy looking EQ and sounding EQ, and that tends to get this kind of like, that sound where people say things like, oh, it sounds very EQ'd. What they're doing is they're sort of hearing the EQ coming in, especially active EQs, which, people argue about, effect phase and stuff. So what we've done here is we've gone below it and boosted 100. We could even go lower. Why don't we do a dramatic boost and then see what the curve looks like? As I go down lower, you see it's more of a gentle curve. So I'm going to go at about 80 and create a nice gentle curve and have a listen. So it's pretty dramatic. But let's come down about here, okay, and have a listen before and after. So here is with the EQ in. That's the chord there I want to hear. The jung jung jung. Okay, so now I've gone to about 114 and I've got the boost there. I'm going to make this super gentle. And now let's hear this section here with the bass. Pretty full. It's pretty darn full. It's I prefer it with the EQ on. I keep relaxing it a little bit because it actually feels like it's coming up a little bit boost too much. I'm now gonna, and I never use the Focusrite stuff, and it's not, I've got nothing against it. I just forget that I have it. Focusrite was one of the original people that got together with Avid. So in the very first Pro Tools bundles I ever had, I had this. So now we're going to do a little bit of high mid boost. I'm going to go to the default 4.8 just to see what happens. It's adding a little spongy kink, 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 which is kind of nice. It's interesting. I've come down to 8K and I'm not hearing anything detrimental in it whatsoever. But what has happened is some of the peaking's gone. Some of that high level kind of fizziness that was kind of a mess, making it sound a little bit too has gone. And it's not as peaking as much now. So stuff that's going to get in the way of the mix. So it's throwing the drums, and we'll probably hear more hat. We'll probably hear more beautiful, air around the drums. So it's quite simple. It's quite simple. Now, a lot of people like, when I was working with Neil Avron on a couple of projects, Neil's not a big 2K, 2.5 guy, especially when you're using like Marshall amps, which have a lot of 2 to 2.5. So he has a tendency to cut. And also bear in mind, when you're boosting around those areas, you're also cutting, if you like, because you're turning it up. So if you're turning it up by boosting certain things, you're cutting others. Okay, that's great. So I really like what that's doing. I'll let it loop for a little bit, but now it's got presence without being too thick. And it's sound now the before and after is like it goes from sounding a little cloudy to just sounding a little bit more open, but without being overly bright because we got rid of some of that super highs. Cool. So very, very simple. Very simple indeed. Not a particularly like, we're not getting in there and pulling out like the individual frequencies. We're just brightening a little bit more in the high mids, cutting some of the mid range that maybe is a little honky, might also be eating up some of my hit on the snare, probably going to be eating a bit of the vocal up as well. So just some subtle things, boosting where we can to give it more presence and about 4 or 5K, but without too much, cutting everything above 8K so it's not interfering with the cymbals, it's not interfering with the air on a vocal, for instance, and it's just making it a little bratty guitar tone, which is what it is. Now I'm going to pan it over to the left where I wanted it to be in the first place, and let's have a listen. You can see I just muted it there. Now, if I want, I could get like 701K and give it a bit more nose. So it's a bit more of a, Vox sound. But I'm not going to do that yet because Shay's guitar has a little bit more of that grit to it. Yeah, Yeah, Anita, it is subtle. There's definitely some subtleties here. And I'm doing this like really slowly and describing every move because I want, I get asked all the time when we do courses, a lot of the courses, and when I'm doing courses with like Reed Shipham or with Cameron Webb or any of these great, really talented people, I always say we need to know the why more than the how. So here I'm really getting into the why we do this. I'm going to go and grab one of the Waves EQs now. What do I want to use? I suppose I could use... I like the F-Series has been greatly ignored. The real-time analyzer. Oh. What's going on here? We've not had this happen before. Doom, 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 doom. I wonder if this is... I didn't change anything and it's working okay. Oh, what happened? We've never had that happen. It's funny because, like, I'm a Pro Tools user, obviously, and I've nothing against any DAWs. But one of the interesting discussions is when I do everything on Pro Tools, and we've done how many live streams? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Hundreds, maybe 1,000 live streams on different things. And we've only ever had one instance when Pro Tools crashed. Do you remember that time? And our computer was running ScreenFlow. It was running ScreenFlow, so it was recording the video at the same time as it was streaming live, and we had something else running as well. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, we had 3 competing programs running. Nobody in their right mind would be mixing a song or recording running other CPU-dependent things, and that was the only time it crashed.
We also had 2 interfaces connected to it.
And we also had 2 interfaces connected to it, and it was totally crazy. And this was the old computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM. It was like super, and it's the only time it's crashed. But every single time I do anything and we talk about, DAWs, 50% of the comments are like, Pro Tools sucks, it crashes all the time. It's like, I don't want to be that guy, but, we use it every single day and we've had it crash once in 1,000 streams. So it's an interesting one. It's like, look, I get it, everybody has a problem with big corporations when they get successful and they charge a lot of money. And yeah, and I suppose to your average kid, which I totally understand, up and coming, they're going to see Avid Pro Tools as being McDonald's compared with whatever, Fruity Loops, man, FL Studio rocks. And I get it. FL Studio, most people, I think 50% of the people use FL Studio use a cracked version. I get it and I understand that's how you start. No disrespect to FL Studio, but you understand what I mean. You're coming in, you're young, and you get something for free, and then you look at a software and it's expensive. I am not paid by Avid whatsoever. To be quite honest, almost the opposite. Trying to get anything from Avid is like a real pain in the butt. We've been trying to get an educational discount for all of our members, which I still am working on, because I do use Pro Tools, and it would be great if we could get it for really super cheap for all of you out there, so you could be using it as well, if you want. So still working on that. So trust me, I have no affiliation. I'm not Dave Pensado who gets paid, a fortune by Avid to talk about it. We're not on the Avid stage, all that kind of stuff. God bless Dave. He gets a lot of money to promote it. We don't. We try to make this all about every DAW. But with all that being said, it did just have a glitch on us, but I don't know why. And now it's glitching again. Okay, I don't know what's going on here with this. I'm going to change this plugin out. It might be something that we need to get. Now it's opening up. Now it's opening up Chrome after that big discussion. It might be something to do with using this plugin at the moment, and Eric needs to update something or whatever. So Give me a second to get out. And then, and then we'll get the big discussions about using waves. So I'm glad I opened that up, though. But have a listen. So the purpose for me using was for using the F6, and I forgot the new REQ as well, is that guitar tone of Shay's doesn't have the high end fizz that Brendan's did. You can hear, most importantly, but you can also see that about 4 or 5K, it's gone. It's kaput. There's a lot of mid-range in his tone and not as much in Brendan's. So why don't we, make this a 4-band? And get into maybe some 500 here and do like a general kind of cut. In that sort of area here. You know what? I'm going to go for a 6-band. And this is one of those instances where, I don't like to look at frequencies. It's not, this is what I'm hearing. I'm using this to illustrate what I'm hearing. Before we get too carried away looking at it, what I'm hearing is a little bit of nose, which I like, but a little bit too much nose. I'm not hearing enough bite on the guitar. And other than that, I kind of like it. I'm going to high pass a little bit. This is a little bit more of a mid-rangey tone. It was probably my AC-15 that I had at the time. Actually, to be honest, Dave Jordan's AC-15 that I had at the time. That's probably what is causing this. And it's one of the best sounding amps I've ever had, but it does give you a lot of mid-range build-up. So now I'm up to about, let's go to about 100-ish, and you can listen. And now we're going to grab some high mids, about 3 to 5K around about here, and boost it. Have a listen. I mean, what's interesting, and I'll play a little bit longer so you can hear. What's interesting is Shay's tone on that AC-15 is requiring a little bit more EQ, but it takes the EQ. There's something about that Vox AC-15 which is pretty remarkable. Like you see, I'm doing quite a lot of stuff to it, but it sounds great. It's really responding well to the EQ. So I don't need to get more dramatic than that, but what I'm going to do now is go to 6 here, and I'm high passing, even though there's not much to high pass. It's just I'm low passing. I just said high passing. I'm low passing, even though there's not much to low pass to cut the highs. I'm just doing as a precautionary measure. There's no reason to leave the odd going on. It's just going to get in the way of the vocal and in the way of the cymbals. So now, this is why I like the why. Now I'm listening going, wow, I really like Shay's guitar tone. Let's see if we can bring in a little bit more of that on Brendan's. Now, we did a 2K cut, but in a 700 to 1K, there's not much going on there. So that's the 6-band. Let's just, and I can see why I don't use the Focusrite. I feel like it's not really doing exactly what I need, but I'm going to go and grab an REQ afterwards. And this is why sometimes when I do mixed breakdowns, you'll see several instances of EQ or instances of compression. I'm not going to go back and start again. I'm just going to add what I need. Now you could say, oh, well, Warren, go back and start again. But if I'm moving fast and I'm not explaining, I'll just go, okay, I want to add some mid-range. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one of these EQs and go to about, the 700-800 area and just do a boost. And let's have a listen. so much better. So much better. It's bringing what I like about Shay's guitar. So what I did is I took what I liked about Brendan's guitar and added to Shay's guitar. And now what I like about Shay's guitar, I'm adding to Brendan's guitar. And we get this. And now there's some good mid-range kind of rock and roll going on. I absolutely love it. So there you go. That's my thinking on the guitar tones there. Hopefully that all makes sense to you. That's giving us body, fullness, some mid-range. You know, it's a tough one. Maybe it's a little much, but there's something about, you know, the British guitar sounds that I grew up listening to that I like. I tend to have my guitar tones be a little bit more middly than some people's. You know, I'll let a little bit more of that pass through. Now, Anita, that's just what I wanted to do. The reason why I went to the Focusrite was really just for variety. So I don't want to get into this sort of a place where I'm always using the same tools because, you know, not everybody has those tools. Not everybody has a Waves bundle. Not everybody's spent, you know, $1,000 on those plugins. So the thing about the Focusrite is it does come free with with Pro Tools, and your free plugin might be something else. So, you know. Now, Shay's arpeggio line here, which I'm going to solo, was really heavily EQ'd to be like that. That was how it was recorded. I'm just going to grab, what else could we grab here? Let's grab a filter bank. And I'm just going to listen on the high passing here. So we're up to about 200 here. Let's just go down and do a boost around about that area and see if we can just make that a little sharper. So you saw when I engaged that, how all the body came back, but also there's nothing below that really going on anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of doing a double whammy. I'm reinforcing what we like about the low end, but also removing excessive low end that we don't need. Now, my next thing is like, maybe we should go in and see if we can just grab some of that bite. That's nice. Because if you hear the overall tone, it's got, I really shaped it to be about 700 to 1.5. It's the dong, 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 dong. It's really nosy. And again, it's probably the AC15, which has that in abundance. So I feel like what we've done now, I'll give it a couple of seconds so you can hear. I just think we've made more of what was already there. And again, I'm going to low pass, meaning I'm going to take off some of the super highs that we don't need. So have a listen while I do it. quite a lot of bite there. It's nice. Let's hear it in context of the track, because this is what we should always be doing. I solo, as we always talk about, I solo to illustrate a point, because, you know, it's when you're learning and you want to hear the different EQs. I mean, the filter bank is one of my favorite sounding EQs. I feel like Colin is really super smart. He's all about trying to be as analog as possible. And he was one of the first people really to have really great sounding EQs. I mean, so many of my friends in the industry are huge fans of what he does, and for good reason, you know. So I think that's pretty musical, but obviously I want to make sure that that's not taking our heads off with that boost. I don't think it's going to, but we need to hear it in context. Now, I have to decide where those guitars come in. It's probably a volume thing. I'm probably going to need to... You know, there's a couple of things we could do. It's probably going to be a volume thing. I'm probably just going to try. I'm trying not to do too much automation on this, because I'm trying this to be like a band playing. So, you know, but that could be an automation thing. And it could be like, okay, it went to chords, now the guitar has to come up ever so slightly. So let's bear that in mind. Now, but I'm moving quickly, or quick enough here so we can hear all of these tones. Let's get into Shay's lead guitar, which is panned the opposite direction to this one. Now, as we're bringing in the guitars and as things are starting to get a little brighter here and there, I'm feeling like the snare is suffering ever so lightly. Ever so lightly, ever so slightly. So I'm just going to go in on my snare bus there and just grab that and do a little tweak. So just breaking it a little bit brighter on that snare bus there. Have a listen. I feel like the snare top itself could be a little brighter. Now I feel similarly about the kick. The kick could just do just a little bit more bite. Now we've gone around about, 4 or 5K here to try and get it here, but I'm wondering whether that should be more in the 2-5 regions. Let's listen to it in context. Now you see there's a dramatic boost going on there, but we're listening to it in context and it seems to feel right now. So even though it looks, quote unquote, looks like we're boosting a lot, it actually feels right. that's where I'm really appreciating. I'm appreciating it in the dense areas as well. But now I'm feeling like, yeah, we've got these nice crunchy guitars, but now the kick is coming through, and now the snare's got a little bit more bite. Everything has a punch to it now, which I'm enjoying. The snares like blap, the kicks like blap, the guitars, there's like a mid-range. Because, you know, I think when we first started, when we first started, we talked, you know, about how do we get this band to obviously be fans, sound like they're fans of Tom Petty and like classic kind of rock, but also, and sound like a band in a room, which is what it originally was, trapped in a room, but also sound young. Because at this point, this is a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, this is the first of the 2 albums I did with them, they were probably 24. I can't remember, the youngest might have been 22, the oldest might have been 26. I mean, they're all closer to 30 now, but the thing was is they were young and they needed to sound young. It doesn't want to sound like a bunch of, like me, who listened to Tom Petty in the 80s, trying to sound like Tom Petty in the 80s, or somebody 10 years older than me who listened to, Tom Petty in the 70s, trying to sound like Tom. It's got to sound like a young person in a modern setting, trying, listening to something and being inspired and having their version of it. As far as the kick frequencies, you can go back and watch the videos because we did them all there. But the kick out, I dramatically got rid of the high end so that there was no confusion with the high end, so that the kick in is supplying the snap on the kick. Okay, so we can put all this in because we've already done that. We still haven't done any reverbs or effects on anything yet. I'm going to, but we haven't yet. So what are we left with? We've got, the solo. I'm famous for my solos. Here we go. It's a little bit nosy, that Shay slide, a little wow. So I'm going to take this, the EQ that we did on his main guitar, and pull that down for the slide. Let's have a listen. South London. Well, what's interesting is all my family are from South London, or even South or South. South London. Yeah, they're actually from South London. And like a lot of the musicians, my family are Morden, Rains Park, Merton, Cheam, Epsom. Yeah. So, yeah, pretty South London. Yep. My dad didn't really sound like that, though. He didn't go south. But yes, it's that's the stomping ground of Jeff Beck and everybody. Jimmy Page, everybody, all of the blues rockers in in England were from South London, and the theory goes, you know, all of the wealth was in North London, and it is, you know, all the money's in North London, and so, you know, life was great, and it was much poorer in South London, and they tended to like break out, and you know, they had something to rebel against, quite frankly. There's a great book by Charlie Gillett called The Sound of the City, which I reference a lot, and that's one of the points that he makes is like the poorest areas of England, or the poorer areas of England, tend to produce the most, you know, most amount of amazing talent. Okay. Having a listen. Cool. Now, I'm enjoying it. I'm also very, very aware that the mid-range is definitely like aggressive. So this is just what I'm going to do. I'm going to take an ear break, and I'm also going to just bring down a little bit of these boosts I did, because I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel like a little bit of like pain going on, like very subtle, but I'm like, eh. So just got to be careful, you know, when you're working for long periods of time, that you don't end up just like boosting high mids, high mids, high mids, because it's where your ears are most sensitive. So I'm just gently going through all of this and just bringing down the gain a little bit. This is what life, the universe, and everything has taught me. That, you know, you need to be aware that if you're boosting high mids where your ears are most sensitive, that there will come a point where you'll just keep going and going and going. The organ we didn't do anything specific on. You know what I will do on this organ is shape the high end a little bit. Here is on the reverb. So just subtleties. It's really, we talk about this all the time about balance. It's really important that everything feel like it's in a balance. What can happen is and it's happened to all of us. Remember the Jim Scott quote? Sorry. Wow, squat. I just took quote and Scott and made it into one word, Jim Squat. No, the Jim Scott quote, where he said the loudest thing in the mix is the last thing you mixed. And it's not just a volume thing, it's an EQ thing. So what can happen is I'll end up like boosting high mid frequencies dramatically on an instrument, and then doing and bringing everything else up and up and up and up. And before you know it, everything is unbelievably brighter. So I'm just wary of that because I've been doing this a long time. So I just brought back all of those moves I did ever so slightly. And now the whole song has balance, as opposed to like, you know what I mean? As opposed to like getting one thing, making it too bright, and then another thing too bright. Before you know it, it's just a war of high mid-range. So Eric, do you have a joke to tell while I use the bathroom?
I'll figure something out.
The bathroom. I'm going to use the bathroom. I grew up in Hampshire, hence why I don't say South London.
Hello, hello, hello. What is up, guys? Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that one plugin. I'm probably gonna have to reinstall the plugin or something. It could also be because our playback engine is so low, and maybe that plugin takes up a lot of CPU power. But and we have the playback engine. Where's it at? Yeah, the buffer size at 128 samples, on because Warren's mic is always on. If we raise the buffer size, then he gets this nasty latency, and yeah, it's weird. Mike Sparks, you have a joke? Please tell. Third-party jokes. I do not. Hello, everyone. The world of the Erics. Clint says you're only old as you feel. You are as old as. I totally just butchered that. I'm not even gonna try. Yeah, Anita, I probably just didn't load correctly. It happens. Joke? All right, here. I'll get you guys a joke. Another one from Keith Fells. I don't think I told all three of them last time. I think I just told one of them, which was how do two lead guitar players greet each other? And the answer was, I'm better than you. That was last joke from a while back. I think I said, what is the definition of optimism? And that is a drummer with a mortgage. I think I said that last time too. Why do sound engineers only say 1, 2 during sound check? Why do sound engineers only say 1, 2 during sound check? Oh, have I ever undone all the work Warren has done while he's gone? Heck no. I would not even try to do that. George, that's hilarious. So, why do sound engineers only say 1, 2 during sound check? Because on 3, you have to lift. It's more of a, I guess, a live sound engineer joke. But still, that one was cool. I got it. It was fun. Suspense. Yeah, that's why I just kind of like throw out the joke and I just wait. Give it time. Have you ever seen a grown man naked? Oh man, what is the answer to that? And how is everyone else doing, by the way? Everyone holding up? I finally got rid of all that extra scruff I was growing out because I just kind of got lazy, and it like for 2 weeks in a row I just did not trim or shave or anything like that. Finally got rid of it, so I guess I can't be what is it? Teen Wolf? Exactly. Hire a new joke writer. You know me, Tom. One day you'll accept it, Tom. One day. Yep. All clean. How weird. Normally I come up here and have so much to talk about, but right now I'm kind of like blank. Totally blank. Totally just deer in headlights. Maybe because Warren caught me off guard. Usually he tells me like, hey, Eric, do you have a joke? And then he waits like 15 minutes before he goes out. Whereas this was just like, hey, do you have a joke? And then boom, he's gone. Clint says, have you ever seen a shrunken man naked? Yeah, this is my normal look. Although my hair is long. My hair's getting long. That's why the beanie's out. It's a little warm outside, but my hair kind of froze out. It just becomes a fro because it's straight hair and it just goes outward. The sides definitely go outward. The top was getting long enough that I was starting to droop over, but yeah, I'm not about that. So beanie comes out, even if I have to sweat through it. Just gotta wash it. I don't look like a slacker anymore. It does make me look younger. It's weird though. It's weird having facial hair for a long time, and not that it was even, I wouldn't even call it a full-on beard. It was just messy, but trimming it off and just looking at yourself and just like, whoa, shit, weird. When can you hear my mixes? Well, you know what? To be honest, I actually haven't done. I have actually. Trying to think. Because outside of this, of what work we do here, I actually haven't done a full mix on my own. Or have I? Oh, no, I have. Oh.
Did you tell your joke?
Oh, I did.
What was it? What was the joke?
Unlocking the phone.
How many Erics does it take to change the light bulb?
Oh, man, I would love to hear the punchline on that.
I don't know.
It's why do sound engineers only say 1, 2 during sound check? And it's more of a live sound engineer joke.
Why? That's like 1, 2. I don't know.
Because on 3 you have to lift.
I know a lot. All right, you want this one? This one's about as much swearing as you're going to get from me. What's the difference between a toilet seat and a monitor engineer? What is the difference between a toilet seat and a monitor engineer? And if you want to think about what this punchline is, bear in mind that a monitor engineer told me this joke. What is the difference between a toilet seat and a monitor engineer? A monitor engineer only has to deal... Sorry. A toilet seat has to only deal with one a-hole at a time. I got that from a monitor engineer when I was in a band. I was probably being like, hey, can you turn up? And I was probably being that guy. All right, so I've got a little bit of a fresh air perspective here. I want to do these as long as possible for all of the academy here, but I also want to make sure that, we're keeping our ears fresh. So we're not going to do automation today. We're going to add some vocal effects, and then we're going to come back and do the last set of automation. And the only thing we have on the master bus is an L2, which doesn't actually have any limiting on it at all. I can turn it off, and as you can see, it makes absolutely no deal whatsoever. So we have nothing on the master bus. We just have the meter that I've been using just to make sure we're not smashing YouTube and destroying the algorithm, So let's throw everything in and see what we want to do about the vocal.
You once lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. It was last call. It wasn't you, it was the alcohol.
We're definitely going to have some fun with some automation. Like, for instance, you know, there's sections that feel like they need to be pushed a little bit, but there's also dramatic things. I'm wondering, like, on this section here.
You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline. You were the catalyst.
Like, there's no punch there.
Catalyst.
Like, what do we do?
Catalyst.
There's a nice break in there.
Catalyst. Gasoline, you were the catalyst.
I think, there. Let's add a cymbal hit in there. So this is what mixing's all about. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, what's going on there? I'm not hearing it. And we haven't got to automation yet, but we could put a cymbal hit in here. Let's try this.
Gasoline, you were the catalyst.
Yes, Kevin, you definitely can do the automation, but I was just saying we're not doing the automation yet. So I'm thinking about, like, you know, what can I do with what I'm trying to do here, just to get back to the to reiterate, what I'm trying to do here is do as little automation as possible, specifically because I want this to be the band in the studio, you know. So what can I do just to kind of enhance that without getting too clever? You know, we're going to do automation on the last time, and I'm sure we'll come back to this next week and give you guys and girls enough time to work on this in the meantime. But we'll come back to the automation next week. What I'm trying to do here is, like, how can I create the drama using the tools I've got? And so the cymbal hit, I think, is going to help. I do think the cymbals are quiet, these overdub cymbals. So I'm just going to crank them ever so slightly, have a listen to it in context. Let's hear what it's like here. That's better. I think, you know, we'll do automation stuff in there and push it, you know, as and when a need be. But at the moment, I'm trying to find the solutions that are more about performance-based. Okay, great. I like what's going on. I do want to add some reverbs and delays to the vocals. We have the vocal thickening trick down here, which I think is working really nicely in that verse.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. This is a walk away from all the dirty little games you play.
It's doing a really nice job in there. It really, really, really helps. It just kind of gives it a little otherworldliness that makes it just fit nicely. But I think a short reverb would be really nice. Why don't we try a monoverb down the center that's super short? So we're just going to come off here as send. Let's pick 19 because it's mono. And we'll call it Vox Mono Verb. I just want to try something just down the middle. I'm going to grab an EQ. I suppose we'll get an REQ. And just for the time being. And then grab the most generic reverb, which of course would be the D verb. And we'll keep it 100% wet, of course, because it's going on an auxiliary here. We'll go small room, which is 500 milliseconds. Have a listen just to that with the vocal. I just want to hear it a second.
Walk away.
Make sure we got the right input. Here we go.
Walk away from all the dirty little games you play. Yeah, I heard your sorries, but I saw no change.
Pretty dramatic. We're going to use the EQ here to get rid.
Walk away from all the dirty little games you play. Yeah, I heard your sorries, but I saw no change. I gave you love, you gave me. Walk away from all the dirty little games you play. Yeah, I heard your sorries, but I saw no change.
Okay, now I'm going to bring it down. Now, I personally like to EQ before a reverb because I'm not trying to completely and utterly remove high end or low end using the Abbey Road trick. I use it going in because what I'm trying to do is control the sound that goes into the reverb and let the reverb then add some light high end, because I tend to find if I EQ after, and I do it, but if I EQ after a reverb or after a delay, what ends up happening is we get this, you know, sort of too controlled. It needs a little bit of wrongness. It's a bit like, you know, we high pass and low pass, but we try not to make it, we're not doing EDM here. We're not using like big fat synths and trying to build a jigsaw puzzle of square waves where a track kind of goes, oh, no, right from the get-go. It's not, and we're not going to war here. We're making music. So I'm trying to just kind of like tame things, and that will make it feel more natural.
Walk away from all the dirty little games you play.
So let's just, now we're hearing a taste of it. Let's hear it in the verse.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard.
So I'm going to loop that.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone.
Subtle, but I like it.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone.
So it's at that point, isn't it? It's at that point where somebody might hear that and go, oh, the vocal's really dry. But listen to it in solo.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol.
Not dry at all, but it's just enough to give the vocal its own space, its own thing going on. And I like it. I like it. It's also reinforcing a little bit of what's the H3000, the vocal thickening trick, is doing, because that has like a slight delay to it, slight halo around it. And also I like mono verbs. I like mono verbs for many, many reasons, but it sort of keeps it focused down the middle. I don't need everything to be wide all the time and covered in ambience, you know, and what happens then is nothing is wide because everything is wide. And this will really help us if we want to go to the chorus and put a wide plate on the vocal.
Last call, it wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. Last call.
So that's great. So that's my verse verb, and I really like it.
You once lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst.
Okay, great. I'll listen to this quickly.
So far gone.
Okay, so this is Shay singing backgrounds.
Boulevard.
A little bit of auto-tune on that. Shh.
Boulevard. But you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard.
What's interesting about this EQ is, like, I like the control on the top and the bottom, but I actually think there's too much mids. So this is what I'm going to do, which is really kind of silly, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to grab, we'll go up to a 4-band here. And let's just grab a little loop again.
We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone.
I'm going to put that into pre-fade for a second. And the reason why I'm going to do this is, again, this is all teaching. It's not how, we necessarily mix where but I'm going to mute. So now it's in pre-fade. You'll hear just the verb on its own.
We talked all night, but you were so far gone.
Now I'll bypass it.
We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard.
So the thing about Brendan's voice is it's fantastic, but there's a lot of mids in it. And, we did some fun stuff. We boosted some high end like crazy and also got rid of some, low stuff down here after using Soothe 2, which we're trying to get the deal on, by the way, trying to figure it out. We've spoken to them. We're just trying to figure out. It's all about getting codes for members and stuff like that, and trying to figure out how to do it so that it doesn't become like a massive exercise in hundreds of hours of work. Because when we do the Produce Like a Pro stuff and we do the deals and stuff, the one we have with Mac DSP, the one we have with Cali, the one we have with everybody, Vintage King, any stuff we're doing, Lewitt, we don't actually commission, just so you know, honest to God, we don't make any money off it. So we have to try to figure out how can we get these companies to give us deals without adding 10 grand's worth of work to it, and unfortunately there's always like a part of that. So Soothe, we're talking to Oak Sound, we will get it figured out so you guys can get a deal. All right.
We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, I can hear the auto tune on that. I think we may have changed the harmony note. That's why.
Boulevard.
Yeah, Boulevard, Boulevard. I may have done that. Boulevard,
Boulevard.
Boulevard, 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 Boulevard.
Boulevard.
Yeah, so what he probably did was sing Boulevard, the same note as Brendan.
Boulevard.
So then I'm like, oh, Boulevard. And I'm like, oh. So I actually tuned the note down. That's why you hear the auto tune.
Boulevard.
Vard. Yeah, you can tell that I took Vard and went Vard. So that's why you hear the auto tune. I moved it a long way. That's what happens. The band leaves, you change your mind, and you either go in there and re-sing it with a different voice, which I could have done, or probably not a smart idea, or could have been okay. I've done it. Or you just tune the notes the way you want to hear it. And in context of the mix,
Boulevard.
don't notice. All right. But what I'm going to do here is I have to decide on the backgrounds what sound I want.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
I think I want this to have a little bit more of a mid-range and maybe even a little bit of a crunch. So why don't we grab something cheap and cheerful like lo-fi? Here you go. So I'm going to bring this vocal into the center.
Lit me up like a
I'll take this off pre-fade so we don't have to listen to the verb the whole time.
lit me up.
Oh, this is weird.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
The distortion makes it brighter, the saturation makes it darker.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
So even that 1.1 is still, you can hear it. So what I'm going to do is I'll grab, I was going to say something generic. Why don't we do... Bum dee dum 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 dum, slang a ding a doo da 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 da. I'm trying to think of I can never remember half of the names of the plugins that I'm looking for, especially when I'm waffling away. And I'm like, where am I? What is that called again? You know? Well, let's cheat. Let's go to Avid. Diva, Dynamic Compressor, Fairchild. This is all the stuff that comes with the software. So I'm seeing what choices I have in there. Oh, here it is. EQ3. I'm looking for an EQ plugin. Can't remember the name. And what's it called? EQ.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
Okay, so I've gone up pretty high. 400.
Lit me up like a cigarette.
But it's edgy, and that's what I want.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
Okay, I'm going to copy that down. Pan them either side.
Lit me up like a cigarette.
It's a bit mid-range, it's a bit aggressive. Let's have a listen.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
I like that. So what do? We whopped off a snizzle ton of low end. I mean, we're about 500 and everything's gone. A snizzle ton of like 4 to 5K and above is gone. But it's poking its head out and it's a little distorted, just a shade, a little uneven. Lo-fi is not like sweet and pretty like a lot of distortions or saturations. And I like it.
Oh yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. And don't you know, it won't be easy letting this love go. I never wanted your tears to flow. Sometimes you need more than a handle. I need a new road. I think
Yeah, there's going to have to be some guitar automation. There's just not much I can do about it. I know I'm trying to avoid doing too much automation stuff to it until the very end, but I can hear there like do-do-do-do. I want to hear that arpeggio. It's a little lost. I think we could maybe sculpt the EQ a little bit, but I think we're going to bring down the chugging guitars in the verses ever so slightly to let that come in, and also so the chorus has more impact, you know?
oh yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
So I like what's going on there. I do think it needs a little bit of compression control of those backgrounds, because let me up like a cigarette. You know, you hear it kind of jumping out a little bit. We could put the soothe on it. I think it's overkill and unnecessary. I don't think you have to throw, money at every single situation. I'm going to go for the cheapest, freest plugin that comes on there, Bomb Factory, which I have been using, if you've been using Pro Tools, for around about 25 years.
Lit me up like a cigarette.
Let's get the release time a little faster.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you
A little less input. Remember, 1176 is a fixed threshold compressor, so the more you turn up the gain, the more compression you get.
lit me up like a cigarette, and you
Okay, and remember that's supposed to sound crunchy and distorted before you go, why is it crunchy and distorted?
lit me up like a cigarette, and you burn me down.
Okay, it's doing what I want it to do. I'm now going to bring up the output a little bit, so it's a little bit more tucked, a little louder from the gain reduction, and have a listen.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burn me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline. You were the
That's pretty tasty. It might want to come up with fresh ears, but at the moment it feels just nicely tucked behind the lead vocal.
but I saw no change. I gave you love, you gave me pain.
Yeah, Let's bring it up ever so slightly. I might group bus it in a second. Definitely not with compression. I'm not a big fan of... I love grouping things, don't get me wrong, but I do like to do individual stuff. And I know there's a lot of conjecture about how waveforms look. There was a whole discussion, and it was David Nozzi, who's a friend of ours. He did do this thing about don't, take multiple microphones or your DI and your bass amp and treat them differently. I think he might have to backtrack on that now because, of course, that's how every major mixer mixes. We treat the DI and the amp separately, but he did do a whole video and show, look, it looks like there's a phase shift. He's probably backtrack on that, or he's pretending he didn't say it. I'll tease him about it next time I see him. But, I do like treating things individually. Like Bob Marlette, one of the great rock producers and engineers and mixers, takes all the elements of the kick drum like we did there and EQs them all separately and then puts them back into one, and then he makes gold records, puts on one leg at a time. No, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's all very well to theorize about things, but how does it sound? And so I personally like to EQ and compress individual elements and then bust them back together and do something globally. Now, there's plenty of times when I can get away with just busting and EQing compression, but the plenty of times is just because I do it a lot. Most of the time, it's individual stuff like this, and then we might bust it afterwards.
Lit me up like a cigarette, and you burn me down, and now there's nothing left.
Feels like I brought it up a little bit too much, but it's nice. Okay, great. I'm feeling pretty... Whoops. Don't need two of those on there, Warren. So I'm feeling pretty darn good about it at the moment. I think I'm going to add one more thing before we go. I'm going to add a stereo verb, and then we'll come back. And we haven't done any delay effects, and I don't know if we're going to, but I haven't done any delay effects on the vocals yet, and I haven't done any reverbs on the guitars yet, which I think I'll probably do in a little with fresher ears. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the Vox verb. So and we'll call this one stereo, and we'll probably... It's going to only be in the choruses or mainly in the choruses. So we'll call it choruses. I just make it easy so that when we're quickly looking, we can go, oh, we don't want it to be 19 and 20. We want it to be 21 and 22. So we can bring that back on. Okay. So we'll come in. Yeah, 21 and 22. We'll come off the vocal, 21, 22. And we'll do what we did before. We'll grab an EQ. I may even... Well, I'm not going to take that because there's too many. Sometimes I just copy stuff down if I know it's already done what I want it to do. But in this instance, I'd have to just spend more time undoing my EQ moves. So we'll grab a 4. We won't do anything to it yet. But we will grab the D-verb and bring it down. We'll just select a different reverb. I'm going to go for a plate, a large plate, medium plate's 1.2 seconds. Let's have a listen to the vocal, again in solo for teaching purposes only. Here's the chorus.
Yeah, lit me up. Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark.
Now, what's interesting is that's not very stereo, is it? It really isn't. Let's go to an ambient, see what it sounds like.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the...
That's pretty tasty.
Yeah,
it's not what I was going for, but let's have a listen.
It was last call. It wasn't you, it was the alcohol. We talked all night, but you were so far gone. Another night on sunset.
It's nice. It's not what I want, though. It was really good, though. I just was, I liked it in solo. See, here's the trick. I just listened to that in solo and was like, it's great. Tried it on the verse and it wasn't. Dangers of listening in solo. But that's what we do. All right. But as long as you're checking all the time like we just did there, you won't fall into any traps. So let's go to a large ambient.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's no...
Not digging that. Church?
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline. You were the cat.
You can use the high cut and the high pass on the deverb. I tend to shape the EQ going into it, but you can use it. Absolutely. So that's why I was explaining it before. You may have come in later. I like to EQ the source going into the reverb or the delay, as opposed to using it on the plugin. Now, I don't know in which order it is. They might have it afterwards, they might have it before. Either way, I like to be in control of that choice, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'll use it on the plugin, especially when I'm moving fast or I need a quick adjustment, but I like to have the control of it going in.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette. And burn me down another.
I'm not digging the deverb today. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spot.
It's not doing what I wanted to, solo or not.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
The only thing I can think of doing, just for the schnezel of it, is to put a compressor on afterwards and just make it into a dynamic. So if we grab, I'm just going to use the R comp because I know how easy it is. There's so many wonderful choices, but I'm going to just do a quick, easy one. Okay, so let's do the side chain from 19 because we know it's sending a mono signal.
Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. Yeah, yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. Yeah, lit me up. Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left. You were the one who put a spark to this. You were the gasoline, you were the catalyst. Yeah, lit me up like a cigarette, and you burned me down, and now there's nothing left.
Cool. I like it. I'm not in love with it. We're going to come back to it with fresh ears. We'll also come back to it with fresh ears, finish up the vocal effects, put some effects on the guitars, maybe some like close rooms on that. That might be interesting for the ambient, for the deverb there. Again, I'll try to keep it to as many free and cheap plugins as possible, and also not be afraid to use some of the new stuff that we've been demoing. So thanks ever so much, everybody. Please go over to YouTube now. We have a baby audio delay review, and it's really fantastic. Did they give us like 10 copies of that giveaway, or was that somebody else?
That was the SSL 9000, I think.
Oh, it was the S9000. They gave us 10. Wow. Okay, so you all absolutely rock. Thank you ever so much. Please, 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 please go to YouTube now and leave me a comment over there. I'll be looking out for that. I have this has been fantastic. I love doing these. I love us working slowly through these things and discussing. And I try as much as I possibly can to take in all of your comments and bring them up. Thank you ever so much. Yeah, we can get into the delay stuff, Anita, later. I saw that comment. And there's an H verb as well. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. We'll come back, do more effects and do automation, and maybe even get to mix bus and finish up next week. See you all. Thank you ever so much.